Well, the British Foreign Secretary has been in New Zealand talking about a more outwards-looking Britain. He's also faced questions about internal political ructions back home. Boris Johnson has been touring the Asia-Pacific region. He's still doing so, saying his country wants to rediscover relationships with countries like New Zealand as Britain starts to negotiate its withdrawal from the European Union. Our political editor, Jane Patterson, is covering his visit.
Flanked by the Foreign Minister Gerry Brownlee at a media conference at Parliament this morning, Boris Johnson said Brexit is not, was not and will not be about Britain turning away from the world.
But it is also about rediscovering and intensifying friendships and partnerships around the world.
Mr Johnson reaffirmed his promise New Zealand would be near the top of the list for a bilateral trade deal with Britain. Gerry Brownlee was asked whether Britain would be at the top of New Zealand's list, given the range of other deals this country is pursuing.
And we've got big capacity to deal with those because we've got a bureaucracy now that's well used to taking care of all of the detail that goes into any free trade agreement. One of the things that we have most got an interest in is the both meat and butter quotas that we have into the EU. A lot of that does go into Europe, into Britain.
When asked about the future of ancestral visas and access for young New Zealanders wanting to go to Britain for their OE, Mr Johnson said Britain does want to have control of its own borders.
That does not mean that we are in any way going to make life more difficult for New Zealanders. On the contrary, we massively value, we love Kiwis coming to our country.
Really,
it's dim. They're very.
You know, they eat so many berries when they crash.
They can't get lift off. They just fall to the ground.
That's a sort of anti-obesity campaign. You could run with that one, couldn't you?
That's true.
Part of Mr Johnson's day was spent at Zealandia, accompanied by the Conservation Minister Maggie Barry. After their wander around the wildlife sanctuary, he and Ms Barry talked to reporters.
Minister, thank you very much for having me here on this important anniversary day of your campaign of slaughter of rats and possums and stoats.
Mr Johnson then took a stock take of the bird life he'd seen.
I've heard and seen a kaka.
Yes.
I've seen a takahe.
You have.
I have handled a tuatara.
Tuatara. Magnificent.
I've handled a tuatara, and I have heard a lot about the kakapo, though I have not seen a kakapo.
But we'll show you the video later.
While Mr Johnson was busy reigniting international friendships, his Prime Minister Theresa May continues to be under pressure after a narrow win in June's snap election, a result he briefly alluded to.
Let's be clear, the election did not evolve entirely in the way that the government had hoped or would have wanted. Okay, I'm going to put that out there. But the Labour Party did not win.
The former London mayor was then asked to rule out a tilt at the leadership.
What the British people want to see is us getting on with the job, and they see no vacancy, nor do they see any need for any more political kerfuffle.
Mr Johnson is now headed to Australia. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.